Welcome, everybody, to the SoxProspects.com podcast, the web's number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox, from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you all for listening. My name is Chris Hatfield. I am the executive editor of Sox Prospects, and we've picked up the team option on our director of scouting, Ian Kundle. Ian, apologies for the long break. That was pretty much all on me. No, literally all on me. Took a little bit of a vacation with the family. Happy to be back from wine country and San Francisco. A little bit of a break then, catching back up on work. But we're back in the saddle just in time to preview the offseason. We're gonna table our season in review for a bit, just to get into what's going to happen this offseason. A highly anticipated episode of the podcast. I don't know if you're sensing the anticipation to the same level I am on Twitter, to the extent that it's not yet a dumpster fire and just in emails and things like that, but really excited to get into it today. Definitely a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it's been the playoffs were the playoffs. The Astros won, which I feel like was inevitable. Entertaining
World Series.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was Philly was a fun team. I will say the narrative surrounding that Philly team in relation to how it impacted Boston was a little over the top.
It was much. It was predictable.
Yeah, no, it was predictable. Because I don't really know who was arguing that Dave Dombrowski wasn't a good GM for the Red Sox. It was just a weird thing that people were, I don't know. It was just weird. The discourse on Twitter surrounding Dombrowski's tenure in Boston was interesting. But yeah, no, season ended, and now I think, as I said it, it's going to be a very interesting offseason. We've talked about it a lot, that this is going to determine the future of the Reds, or at least the short-term future and the direction of the franchise, with how much money they have coming off the books and how many big players or positions they have to address. So it's going to be a really interesting really interesting next couple of weeks and months. And there's a lot that needs to be done to get this team ready to compete again for a championship, because the gap between them and someone like the Astros is pretty sizable right now.
I would dare say that this offseason will define Chaim Bloom's tenure running this franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, because if this doesn't go well and it blows, next season doesn't, if they don't make the playoffs next season, I think it's going to be, tough to, I have FSG John Henry will likely be addressing, or, taking a long look at changing of the guard up top, because, that'd be year 4. And, they've made it to the ALCS once, and then twice they finished last in the division. But the first time, I don't blame them. I don't think that's a Chaim Bloom thing as much as it is the previous regime. But this year obviously didn't go the way everyone wanted, and for next year they definitely need to get back to being competitive. And I think they're the interesting thing is just they have a lot of question marks that need to be addressed to get back to that point. So a
lot of question marks and a lot of capital to use in a number of senses of the word. So they can do a lot. They also need to do a lot. So we'll talk all about that. We'll talk about key dates coming up. Things like protection deadline for the Rule 5 draft is coming up upon us. Free agent deadline coming up. Not deadline, but the date that players become free agents matters a little bit more, and we'll talk about why that is.
We also have to talk about draft lottery day.
Oh, draft lottery day. That's right.
that 0.08% chance.
Hey, man. It's Jim Carrey and Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance. Yeah, I forgot all about that. That's too funny.
I think it's at the winter meetings sometimes. So it's actually not.
It's at the winter meetings. Because it's the day before the Rule 5 draft. Or no, it's after. Isn't it after Rule 5?
I think it's.
Oh no, it's the day before
or the night before.
I think it's the day before, because Rule 5 is always the last thing.
Well, no, it's an evening though, because it's like a primetime special on MLB Network.
Right, but the Rule 5 draft is in the afternoon, and then everyone leaves.
Yeah.
Is what happens. So it's before, because I remember Ethan, I forget his last name, but he's a great Pirates Twitter follow, and he, like me, is obsessed with all kinds of weird CBA rules minutia, and he was asking JJ Cooper about it, because the Rule 5 draft is not going to have the lottery order. It's going to be the regular order. And he commented, and he makes a good point, that it would be weird to decide the order of the Rule 5 draft the night before the Rule 5 draft, because that would kind of put you at a disadvantage if all of a sudden you've got the first pick. It would be very interesting to have that happen. But at any rate, that's not how it works, so we don't need to worry about it. Some things we do need to worry about up front, though. If you could do us a favor and support the show, we would appreciate it. A few ways you can do that: tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell a coworker, tell someone. I guess it's too late to tell someone at the polls today, but tell someone about the show. You can rate and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, which I guess is the same as iTunes, Stitcher, wherever it is that you listen to the show. And you can support us on patreon.com/Sox Prospects, pledge a certain amount per episode and get some neat perks. So you can support us in any of those ways. And of course, you can send your emails to podcast@soxprospects.com because we want to talk about what you all want to hear about. So hit us up there. That said, Ian, let's get started on this offseason preview. And maybe a good place to start is just looking at the calendar, looking at what is coming up for the team. We are into the period right now, as we record this on Tuesday night, of option decisions. And at this point, we know that Xander Bogaerts has exercised his opt-out. That is not a surprise. For those, like, I know my mother was freaking out the other day. It's a formality. He's going to test the market. And honestly, I think for the team, it makes sense for them to let him test the market, because I think there's an amount that they probably want to pay him. There's an amount that he is looking for. I'm sure there is a delta there. My guess is he's going to hit the market and not find the market that he thinks he's going to find, because I think it's pretty clear he is not Carlos Correa.
Well, I think that with Scott Boras as an agent, this was never going to get done.
Sure. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying.
Boras doesn't bring guys this close to free agency only to extend them and not test the market.
Correct.
So
correct.
I think everyone freaking out that he's getting free agency. This has been, as soon as they didn't extend him coming into this year or last offseason, this is what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And now the question is, do they want to pony up and re-sign him? And it's interesting. I think that the discourse coming from the Red Sox front office, I mean, Chaim Bloom said it again today, is that he's our number one target. We want him back. I'm sure they want him back. The question is it a we will do whatever it takes to get him back situation, or is it we want him back, but only on our terms? And that's what's, we need to see, because just using, for example, like Fangraphs, that has a nice, the way they lay it out is pretty nice, where they have like a crowdsourced one, and then they have one of their writers, Ben
projected
Clemens,
salaries,
their projected salary.
Yeah.
His projection for Xander Bogaerts is 7 years, 31 million. So 217 million overall. I personally don't love that. I think that's too much for me to be comfortable.
I would be very surprised if he got that. Honestly.
And I would be too. But you go to the crowdsourced one is 6 years at 28 million, or 6 years. And I think that's in the range I would be comfortable with.
Yep.
And so it's fine. It's fine margins. And if you're looking at AAV, it's, $2 to $3 million, but it makes a big difference overall. And especially when you're looking at the length of the contract, because I'm going to guess Boras is going to want 8 years at least. So yeah,
he's going to ask for it.
He's going to ask for 8 years. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting that I'm pretty sure he also reps like 2 or 3 of those guys. He is Correa, I know for sure.
Right.
And I'm not sure if he has Turner or Swanson, but the shortstop market is going to be very interesting, because it seems like there's a lot of teams that are interested, or that could just be agent speak of saying there's a lot of teams interested. And there's 4 elite guys, and other than shortstop, there's no good positions of free agency, which we'll get to a little later. So,
well, I mean, we might as well. I was going to say, let's just talk about shortstop now. We're already 30% of the way in. Right. I mean, I know we're switching things up on the fly a bit here, but I was thinking about this today, Ian. I think on field only, in a vacuum, for the 2023 Boston Red Sox, the best fit is probably Carlos Correa. Not talking about money, not talking about long-term, just on field. Basically because he's the best shortstop available to me. Maybe you could argue it's Turner.
I think it's one of those two. I would say.
I like Correa's approach in this lineup.
Yeah, I would probably lean Correa, but I would lean Correa. There's
too.
Something very appealing about Turner's athleticism, and
I
think with the way the game is going, the Red Sox could really use like a dynamic, speed-driven guy like him, who also has pop, obviously, at the beginning of the order. Mm-hmm. But I also see where you're saying like Correa's OBP, and then also obviously last year his defense was weirdly down, but prior to last year his defense was elite. So yeah, I think both of them fit the team better than Bogaerts does. Taking the attachment to the homegrown player and all that stuff out of it.
Yeah. And I'm going to try and remove fandom from this. I mean, Xander Bogaerts is arguably my favorite player who's come through the system since I've been working for Sox prospects. So I'm trying to remove that from it. That said, when you add things like the contract it is going to take to sign these guys, as well as some other things that come to mind, I actually think, all things considered, Bogarts is the better fit. And I see the argument against it, but here's my argument for why Bogarts is a better fit. Looking at the Fangraphs numbers, for me, Bogarts for 6 years, it's kind of funny because Tim Britton for The Athletic, who used to cover the Red Sox for the Providence Journal, and was he at the Herald for a while? I forget. I know he covered the Red Sox for a long time. I forget if he was at the Herald for a time or not. Anyway, Tim Britton has a very well-researched, terrific contract projections article on The Athletic today. He projected Bogarts at 175. Red Sox Stats and I on Twitter both agreed I would pay more per year to knock it down to 6. Honestly, I would like 168 sounds better to me than 175, just to not have that 7.
Yeah, I'd rather pay more AAV than less years. Because, I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most with Bogarts. And I think it's worth mentioning is like Correa is like 2.5 years younger than him. Turner's basically the same age, but Correa is significantly younger than both of them. Both of those guys. We haven't mentioned Swanson yet, obviously. But yeah,
Swanson's 29. He's in between.
The way Bogarts he was such a weird year at the plate. And I think it was Alex, and we've talked a lot about it on here and on Twitter. But his season this year at the plate was just so weird. Like his power was gone. Yeah. He had a really high average, but not a good XBA. And it was driven by just an obscenely out of like an outlier batting average on ground balls. And I'm just not sure like Bogarts is the type of player who will age well. That's my biggest concern. And not only, I mean, obviously, and we're talking offensively, we even got to the defensive part of the game where I have serious questions about his ability to be like next year without the shift. His best positions at shortstop were in the shift. It was when he had to cover the least amount of range, when he was to the left side of second base, on the first base side of second base, in that little like corner where he had the second baseman deep behind him and the third baseman to his right playing shortstop, the shortstop position. And I understand his overall numbers were good, but it was largely driven by shift like metrics.
Yeah, and the Red Sox shifted a ton.
As a true shortstop, he was like, I think -1 outs above average.
He was -1. Yep.
He was fine.
He was okay. Yeah.
Like it was passable.
He was improved. He was definitely improved this season. I think the numbers are misleading because of how much he benefited from shifts.
Well, and that's the thing, like bringing up his WAR, it's like largely driven by defense and base running. Like his offensive contributions to WAR were down a little bit from his peak.
Yep.
And the other parts of the game, which you don't expect to age well, brought it way up. And like, that's the tough part is like, I think clubhouse wise, like signing him makes a good statement. You know, it brings back someone obviously the fans are attached to, but if your goal is to win baseball games and set yourself up, you know, in the next 5 to win the World Series in the next 5 years, I'm not sure he's the best player available for how much it's going to cost. And obviously this is the thing that's hard to say is it's all going to depend on what those other guys are getting.
Because I think depends what they're all getting.
Yeah. I think both Correa and Turner will end up getting bigger contracts than him.
Oh, no, there's no question they are. Because if you looking at the crowdsourcing, for example, you finish your point.
No, I was just going to say, but it's just going to depend on how much bigger are we talking.
Exactly. So the Fangraphs projections, Trey Turner they have as their number 2 ranked free agent behind Judge. Turner, the median crowdsource is 7 years, $30 million. So 7 years, $210. Correa, they have at number 3. The median crowdsource is 8 years at $32 million. So 256. Tim Britton has Correa. Oh, come on. Oh, why? He has Correa projected to get 260, which is about the same, right? Yeah, 260. And he's got Trey. Where's Tria? Trey Turner to get 296. I mean, that's a hell of a lot of money. 296 is a lot of money. But both of them getting more than 30 million per for a longer term. And the thing with Bogarts, it just seems part of what I see the fit here is I get that I'm going to talk about both sides of my mouth right now because a lot of people are like, well, why are you going to sign any of these guys to this long-term contract when you've got Marcelo Meyer? My response to that is you do not make major league decisions right now because of a guy below AA. It's just you just don't. Guys move, guys get hurt. It happens. For all we know, they're going to sign any of these guys and they have a career-ending injury in 2 years, and it's not a problem.
Or flip side, if they're still good in 2 or 3 years, it opens up the possibility of moving Meyer to help you at another position,
or move the vet.
Yeah, or exactly. You don't not sign these guys because you have Meyer coming. It'd be a different story if he was in AAA, which is, and the corollary, I think the example of that is what the Yankees have run into. And look at how that worked out. They got Kiner Falefa, and I think the fan base, I don't know if there was anyone they disliked more than him last year on that team.
Yep.
But, they're waiting for Volpe and or Oswald Peraza. And they could have, they had options to address it, but they just didn't.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is that to talk out the other side of my mouth, part of the reason why I like Bogart's fit is I think you sign him to play shortstop. He plays it for a couple of years. If Meyer is ready, I think at that point you can have that conversation with Xander of, look, the best team on the field does not include you at shortstop anymore.
It would definitely be easier to have that conversation with someone you have or built up a strong repertoire with, who you've had for, who's been with the organization his entire career. It's a lot easier to say to him, hey, we would really like you to consider moving to third base or, first base or DH or whatever,
left
than
field.
it is someone like Correa or Trey Turner, who you're signing to a massive contract.
Yeah. And at that point you're paying the guy, you're not paying him for 5 more years. You're paying him for 3 or 4. Right. It's tough to have that conversation with Trey Turner. I mean, maybe Trey Turner would move to center or something.
And Turner did move to second base last year with the Dodgers. So,
but that was also temporary.
Right.
That was knowing
they had Seager and they knew he was going.
Yeah. It's look, this is for a playoff run. You're going to be our shortstop next year when Seager leaves. Just chill. And it's fine, sure, I'll play second.
But with Correa, Correa is a no doubt shortstop, and Swanson is too. At least this year he was. So it's
well, you're not signing Dansby Swanson intending to move him off of short.
No,
right?
Swanson especially, he loses value moving off of. Yeah, it's. I mean, he's younger. He's
the Fangraphs projection. He's 29. He's actually older than Correa. 6 years, 23.5 million. Per is the median crowdsource on Fangraphs, and that's about where both Ben Clemens and the average crowdsource have him. Tim Britton has him getting, 7 years, 168. So a little bit more, 1 more year, basically at the same average. I just don't know that I trust Dansby Swanson to give him more than 20 million. I don't love that fit. I mean, maybe he's option. I'm fine with him as option 4, maybe, but I don't know. I like because
Swanson
better.
To me is the classic contract year out, huge season. Yeah. What do you do? Because if you look at his previous seasons, his career high in WAR was 2021 at 3.4. 2020 was 2.3, which obviously was truncated,
prorated.
But
that prorates out to what was it? 2.2,
2.3. So it's
that prorates out to 6. That's a 6
season. So that was a good season.
6.2.
19 though was 2. 2018 was 1.4. 2017 he was negative WAR.
His essentially his rookie season.
And I think
he had a bad rookie season.
The thing to me that concerns me with Swanson is I don't think that his. Give me a second.
I mean, he's had 2 years in his career where he's been an above average hitter, where he's had a WRC plus above 100. And those were in 2020, he was a 115. And in last year, he was a 116. Maybe that's his true talent and that'll bear out. But that said, I mean, he also just was worth so much on defense this 1 year. It's not like he's consistently been as good on defense either. He had a terrific defensive year, but I don't know. I worry about Swanson. So that's why to me, I don't think I'm being a homer when I say my first choice is Bogarts. My second choice is Correa.
I mean, for me, I'm taking it all out of it. And I think Correa is the best fit on this team. I think his approach, I think his defensive ability is the best of that group.
Yep.
And I think that there's also, I think he would fit in well too. I think that him and Cora, obviously both being from Puerto Rico, would be useful. I think that he could transition well to this team. And
I agree.
So I would slightly lean him But again, it's all gonna come down to money. Because like if you told me I could have Correa at like 8 years 300 or 9 years 300 and Bogarts at 5 150, I'm taking Bogarts at 5 150.
Correct. That's exactly it.
But if you tell me it's Bogarts wants 8 220 and I can have, Correa at 9 300, I'm taking Correa. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's all a sliding scale of balancing like length and AAV. That's what it's going to come down to.
It depends on the contract. And 100%.
That's I think what's going to be interesting is what route do the Red Sox go? And I tweeted about this after the World Series ended. Do they try to strike first? Do they try to be the team to set the market at shortstop, or are they going to play it slow and see how it develops and see like maybe, I don't know, the Giants go out and give Trey Turner a massive contract and be like, yeah, we're setting the market with this guy. Like, because obviously you don't know which is going to be the most beneficial in the long run. If you're setting the market, maybe you got a guy on an underpay. If not, if you wait, you could get stuck with 3 or 4 teams competing for the same guy and you end up having to overpay. Like, that's the hard thing. And I think the thing that Chaim Bloom and co are really having to figure out right now is like, since we couldn't extend Bogarts, what route do we go? Do we go aggressive with him originally? Do we approach all of them, make the similar offers that we're comfortable with? Like, it's just a lot of questions. It's going to be, I think if I were them, I would like to have that situation addressed as quick as possible, because I feel like that it will set the tone for the rest of the offseason in other positions.
I agree. I think it all flows from shortstop. And I guess we should probably address the report from Mark Feinsand today about the Red Sox were talking to other teams about second baseman and saying that his source thinks that the Red Sox plan B, if they don't sign Bogarts, is to move Trevor Story to short. I don't think we need to get too far into the Trevor Story is not a shortstop anymore thing, because we have talked about it on the show a ton.
Yeah.
He has one of the worst arms.
His arm was like below average at second base. It's not going to play at shortstop.
It's not going to play at shortstop. Someone on Twitter responded with, well, Alex Cora said. Alex Cora is going to stick up for his players. He is not going to say that Trevor Story can't play shortstop. What he has said through the lineup is that the team does not believe in him at shortstop because they have played Kike Hernandez, Christian Arroyo, Jeter Downs, and Jonathan Aruz at shortstop over Trevor Story this year. That says all you need to know. They did not consider playing Trevor Story for an inning at shortstop. The Bobby Dahlbeck thing happened while Story was on the IL, and honestly, Downs may have as well. But
yeah,
the point is, they did not play him a single inning at short.
Right. And I also think that it's like I saw someone, people mentioning on Twitter, oh, well, like he's, the highest paid second baseman in baseball, or, you don't pay a second baseman $25 million or whatever. And it's like, with the way the game is going without the shift, second base defense is just as important as shortstop now, because you think about it, if you're running a team with 6 lefties and 3 righties, the second base is basically the equivalent of what shortstop used to be, or what it's going to be now, like without the shift. So you need range.
Difference is arm.
You need sure hands at second base, and you can hide Story's arm at second base because his range and his athleticism really shines there. And that's why I personally would not move him off second base. I think it's a great spot for him. And I think the Red Sox team defense with him at second base is significantly better than whatever it would be if they moved him to shortstop.
They were ahead of the curve signing him to play second base.
Yeah. You're going to see teams putting premium defenders at second base again because of this.
Look at Semien in Texas, like signing him to play. He could have signed somewhere to play short.
Yeah.
But they paid him to play second.
Yeah.
Teams are going to be paying second baseman again. Like it's not a place where you can stash a guy anymore.
Yeah. It's no longer like you're not going to be talking about moving, not Bobby Dahlbeck, but like an equivalent, a first baseman who maybe is like a slightly above average first baseman. You're not going to be moving them to second anymore.
Keston Hiura is not going to fake it at second base for nearly as long as he did. Put it that way.
Exactly.
So, I don't know how we got on that.
It was the rumors, and
I think that's plan like G.
Well, and I think the thing that I think the way it's being framed, I think, is disingenuous. We don't know if it was their plan. Like people, like I saw a lot of headlines in like the Boston media today were like the Red Sox, plan B revealed or whatever, or something equivalent to that.
No, wrong.
If I'm running the team and if I'm a fan of the team, I want the front office doing their due diligence on every possible situation. I want them going out and, even if they had an all-star at second base, I would be, checking the market, see if there's somewhere, you can get on the cheap there. Like, it doesn't hurt to make those calls. And to me, this is just clearly like Weinstein was calling, another team. One of their guys was like, "Hey, the Red Sox called us about our second baseman. Maybe they're thinking about moving Story to shortstop." Like,
I think
okay,
that's exactly
like,
what happened.
sure, but like, and I'm sure they have talked about that, but we don't know if it's plan B, C, D, F, E, F, G, whatever. Like, it could be plan Z for all we know.
Could be for future seasons.
Exactly.
Think about this year when the Red Sox swooped in, when Eric Hosmer scuttled getting traded to the Nationals. The reason they get that deal done is they have been talking with the Padres about this kind of thing for years.
Yeah. So it's like you need to explore all possible situations.
Yes.
And I just think that, that's why, you look at for second baseman potentially. Like,
exactly.
Hypothetically, let's say you call Arizona and they're willing to trade, Kettle Marte if you're taking on Bumgarner's contract or something. Like, maybe you do look into that, explore that situation. And like, I don't think that's plan B. I have a hard time believing they don't address shortstop through one of the big four free agents, or if not,
Agreed.
I think they would address it via trading for like a higher end shortstop. But I don't know who that would be.
I don't know who that would be. I was just going to say, I don't know if you had anyone in mind, because it's such an obvious, like, you are the Boston Red Sox. You are going to have one of the top 5 payrolls in the game. There are 4 elite shortstops available, including your own, and you need a shortstop. Go sign one.
I mean, like, the only scenario that just immediately came to mind was like, let's say the Mariners decide they want to get an elite shortstop.
Well, they've said they want a shortstop to play second base.
Right. But let's say they get an elite shortstop and they put JP Crawford on the block. Maybe you trade for JP Crawford to be like your defense first option. And then you spend that money on outfield or something. I'm just like throwing that out there. But like, I just have a hard time seeing them not signing one of the big 4 shortstops. And if they don't, then I'm not sure that that's a reflection on Chaim Bloom and necessarily. I think that could be more an ownership thing, which is hard to say.
To me, that scenario happens if all 4 sign crazy contracts.
Yeah, which I don't think is out of the question given how bad this free agent market is and how there are a bunch of teams indicating that we're spending this offseason.
Correa and Turner both get more than $35 million average annual value.
They're both 10 years, 300 plus.
Yep.
And then
10 years more than 300. Bogarts gets 8 to something.
Yeah.
Or just 8 years at 220 is
8 years at
240.
Let's say 240, 38.
Okay, 240. Yeah. That's not something I'm doing. And like Dansby Swanson's the last one standing, and he's now demanding 200 million.
Yeah.
Hell no. Like at that point, it's like, okay, now we need to pivot.
Right.
Now
that's why you do your due diligence. That's where maybe then they go after Wilson Contreras or, one of the high end elite starters on a short contract, like Verlander on like a 2-year, $70 or $90 million contract, like
the Scherzer deal.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's why you kind of expect go after, research all these possible outcomes. But I just I think they need an elite shortstop. The way this team is constructed, if you're taking away Bogarts' production, even in a down year, like that lineup just gets so light quickly. And I just keep going back to like when they were playing the Braves, and I don't remember when that was, maybe August, this season. I don't remember exactly when it was, but like you look at the Braves lineup and like they're running out like Michael Harris is like their 8 hitter. And it's just like the gulf in talent between those lineups was just so stark. Yeah. And it's like, I
saw them in DC and it was just, wow.
You're running out like your 8-9 hitters are like Michael Harris and Vaughn Grissom, who it would be Albies if he was there. But like, that's like, you can't, like, the Red Sox have, question right as of now, like catcher is not going to be, an offensive production stronghold. Kike Hernandez is good, but he has limitations. Like Verdugo's the same thing. Like, if you lose Bogarts, that's just a lot of production to replace, and I'm not sure where you get it.
Well, let's talk about losing production.
Because of this free agent class is not good.
Right. Well, let's talk about losing production because we were talking about option decisions. The other option decisions that the Red Sox had were they declined their half of the mutual option on James Paxton. They declined the mutual option for Tommy Pham. And what was the other one? There was one more. Chris Sale opted in is the other thing I think that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And they need to, Paxton has until Thursday, the 10th to decide whether to exercise his option, which is 1 year, $4 million. We talked about this earlier. It's probably not worth spending any time on, but he might exercise it. He might not. I think if he exercises it, you don't factor him in. I think it's just if he shows up, great. If maybe he's in the bullpen, maybe I don't know. Maybe you move him. I don't know.
I'd be thrilled if he took $4 million for one season. That'd be a great deal for the Red Sox. Like, even if he doesn't pitch, who cares? Like, it's $4 million.
It's what you pay a bench bat.
I would love him as a depth option at that price. I frankly would be interested in bringing it back even at like $6 or $8 million if he'd be willing to take that. But yeah, I mean, nothing is that surprising out of those. Like, Pham wasn't coming back at 12 million once it got reported that it was not 6, it was 12. That was never happening. I don't think there was any chance Sale was opting out.
No, none.
And
they're not pitching for 3 years, basically.
Yeah, and Paxton, like, I thought there was a chance they picked it up at 226, especially like because the reason I was thinking they might is look at like some of the projections for starting pitchers in like that middle tier. Like, just I don't know. I'm trying to find one. Okay, Jamison Taillon is 21st on like the Fangraphs list, and his projection is like 314, 312. Paxton at 212 isn't terrible in the context of something like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought there might be or even Jose Quintana. They have 26, 212. Would you rather have Quintana or Paxton? Like, I think that's a reasonable like question.
Yeah.
Even coming off injury. Mm-hmm. So, but I wonder if the reason they didn't is the second year. I'd be more comfortable again on like a 1+1 option for that second year. So I feel like the second year might have been the issue. Like if it was a 1 year, $12 million deal or 13, maybe they're more interested in bringing him in back. But we'll see. I mean, they definitely could still re-sign him. So we'll see.
Well, I mean, maybe that's an entree into the pitching market because I mean, if you look at the free agent class at starting pitcher, there's the top of the market, which is DeGrom, Rodon, Verlander, which is a nice top of the market. I don't know that maybe Verlander's a fit. I don't know. I think he's only a fit, like you said, if things go south at shortstop. Rodon would be nice. I don't know that I see them going the Rodon route.
His injury risk, he's a heck of a pitcher
because he's going to get paid.
Healthy,
he's going to get paid this time.
Would not touch him on like a 5-year deal or longer.
Yep. Kershaw, I don't know.
He's going to go to Texas. He's either staying in LA or going to Texas. Yeah. I don't see he's not playing anywhere else.
Kodai Senga from NPB.
Well, that's the interesting one. Is maybe we can talk about the whole Japanese or Asian market a little later. Yeah. Like there's several guys coming over there's also some interesting relievers coming back, like Robert Suarez last year to keep an eye on. So yeah, like but that market. Yeah. And I also, because they were over the luxury tax last season, I'm kind of more interested in guys that don't have the QO attached to them.
Yep.
Because obviously they'd be losing a 2nd and a 5th round pick plus $1 million in international money for each QO guy they sign. And then I think it would be 3-6 after that. And is that how it works? It goes.
Say this again. You lose your 2nd and your 5th, and then you lose your
6th. Yep. Yeah. So I
don't think you can sign more than one QO free agent.
Oh, really? Okay.
No. I'm saying like effectively, like giving up 4 draft picks is like you're almost punting on your draft.
So that's why I think they will look to kind of target those like non-QO guys would be who I would be going after.
Well, and that's why after
Senga
that
is interesting to me.
Because after that you've got Chris Bassett who's going to receive and decline a qualifying offer. I don't love the Bassett fit for that reason and that reason alone. Although he's 34, which I didn't realize.
Yeah, he's old, but he's definitely going to get it offered.
Nate Eovaldi, and then after that,
well, but we didn't talk about like the Red Sox QO decisions, but like,
well, we'll talk about that in a second. But I'm just saying, like after those guys I just named, who are all like, I'd be cool with getting one of that group, accepting qualifying offers and stuff like that. After that, you're now talking about Tyler Anderson, Mike Clevenger, Andrew Heaney, Sean Manaea, Martin Perez.
It gets ugly quick.
Jose Quintana, Drew Smiley, Ross Stripling,
Noah Syndergaard,
Jamison Taillon, Michael Wacha.
Yeah.
Like
it's not a good
gets ugly class. Real quick.
And the guys at the top all have big questions. Like Verlander obviously was really good this year.
Verlander's 40.
He had TJ last year and he's 40. DeGrom is coming off 40. An injury. He's 35 also, and he's coming off an injury plagued season. And then we mentioned Rodon as a long track record. If you could pick a season to not have a ton of money to spend, this would be it, because it's just.
And that's why, like, I guess if you want to get into the rest of the Q, well, we might as well talk about the QO. Like, they're clearly going to give one to Bogarts. He's going to decline it. Cool. Yeah. They're getting either they're going to re-sign him or get a pick. Fun. JD Martinez, I think we agree at this point.
I don't think there's any chance he gets
it.
Because he would 100% accept it.
Yep. And I don't think you want him back. Like, thanks for the memories.
I bring him back on like $9 million contract. I'm not
Yeah.
giving him 18 million or
He's
20
going to get more.
whatever.
He's going to get more
He's
from
going to get
some
like
NL team that never really got a DH last year.
I bet he'll get like 225 from some NL team, something like that, or 224, like in that range.
Yeah, maybe. What's is he on the Fangraphs projections?
Yeah, I was just looking at it. He is 115, 112 and a half. That's what I was saying. Like one year.
So why would you give him the QO?
Exactly. Well, exactly. And then, which, we don't need to bring it up. But just makes me wonder why he wasn't traded at the deadline.
I mean, that's a separate conversation we've had.
But the pitchers are interesting to me because
Waka and Eovaldi, I don't think they give it to Waka. I think they give it to Eovaldi.
I think they give it to one of them. But I also think that there's a decent chance whoever gets it accepts it.
Yeah, and you know what? So like Eovaldi on Fangraphs, for the projection for him, the crowdsource is 2 years at 15 million per. Ben Clemens has him at 317. Did Tim do him?
I would take him at 118 in a heartbeat or whatever it is. 19,
it's
19.6. Waka is his projections are 210 for pretty much everything. And so that's why I don't think Waka gets it.
No, because I'd rather sign Waka for the 210 than the QO.
Exactly. And I'd be fine bringing back Eovaldi on a 1 year deal. Like he's 33 years old. Like, yeah,
I'd love that. I think that's a great fit. It gives you one more year of him. You know, he can pitch here.
Yep. And you can for him, I don't think he would be mad about it because he likes playing here, and it also would give him a prove it year. Like, prove you're healthy, have a good season, and then you can go out and get last 1 year, like, one last 3 year, $45 million.
Yeah, at age 34, like you can get one more decent contract at 34. You can get it just as well at 34 as you do it at 33.
Exactly.
Right?
So I think that Bogarts and Eovaldi get it, and Waka and JD do not.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. All right. What other? Oh, I guess the only thing. So I guess do we want to talk about the pitching?
We should talk about outfield and bullpen, or
outfield and bullpen. Well, bullpen, I think it's as easy as they need a couple of back.
I would like
at least one.
They need, I think, 2 legit leverage guys.
Here's what I said to you earlier: is I think they need a legit starting pitcher.
Yes.
A legit late inning bullpen piece.
Agree.
They need at least one more legit arm that I think could be of the maybe he starts, maybe he relieves variety. Or you could get 4 and just get 2 of each. But I think when you look at the rotation next year, is going to include Pivetta. It is going to include whatever Sale's going to give you. It's going to include, for at least the vast majority of the year, Brian Bayo. Mm-hmm. They've made clear they want to start Garrett Whitlock.
I think he should be a starter. So yeah,
and I think he should too. I think adding at least one certainty to that, and one more guy who, if it's not working with Whitlock, if Sale is hurt, if look, if you've got 6 guys who are healthy, then you can kick someone to the bullpen, or maybe you kick Bayo to AAA.
Maybe you go to a 6-man rotation.
Maybe you go to a 6-man to start the year.
I wouldn't hate that either.
I wouldn't hate that either to start the year. That would work, but you wouldn't mind kicking into the bullpen.
Yeah.
Right. And then they definitely need at least one more back end guy to throw in with the Houck, Schreiber, I guess that Barnes group, which
Barnes
is not
a reliever to me.
What's that?
Barnes is a middle reliever to me now. I wouldn't count on him to be a late inning guy.
I mean, I think I'd be cool with him as like the 7th, 8th guy eventually if he works his way into
6-7 to me. But yeah, that's
okay.
if he I mean, semantics there, but I think that for me, I would be counting on like my 7th, 8th inning guys. I'm pretty comfortable with Houck and Schreiber in those roles, like both of them.
I'm cool with Houck, Schreiber, Barnes being my 2, 3, 4 is I guess my point.
I just would like, and I would like someone like, and my top 2 targets by far, especially with Edwin Diaz off the board, which was never going to happen. They were not giving him 5 years, $100 million, which I mean, I understand why the Mets did. They overpaid, but I get why they did. They overpaid to get him signed now. Well,
they overpaid to get him signed now because they also don't care at all about the CBT.
No, they don't care about money at all. Fair.
No. Well, they don't care about, and they don't care about any of the penalties. Like, I don't think they care about the draft picks they get for QO guys being worse. I don't think they care at all because they are going so far over the CBT that it doesn't matter.
I feel like the Mets one of these seasons are going to spend like $400 million.
Or they'll get there after the trade deadline.
Yeah, so they'll
acquire like the Dodgers did last season. They'll do that
the Scherzer Turner equivalent in 2 years, and
right.
But like the top 2 guys to me, and I'm interested actually to see what they have projected are Rafael Montero and Robert Suarez, 2 guys we saw pitching deep in October this season.
Montero is not on there.
Yeah, neither are actually.
There is Suarez, yeah.
Because which makes sense, like relievers are relievers. But
the only relievers that are on there, I guess we can say this, their top rated reliever, I guess, because they already took Edwin Diaz off,
Yeah.
is Taylor Rogers is 19 for them.
Yeah, that's weird. I would not touch that.
That's weird. But they've got him at the median crowdsources 2 years, 15 million total.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Keith Law on his free agent list actually has Montero on it. He has him at 40th, and he has him a budget closer to a lot of teams worth 7-8 million a year. And I would be fine giving either or both of them 3 years at 24 million, 20 to 24 million, about that. Montero's 32. Suarez, I believe, is younger. Look, but I like that both of them have shown they can pitch in October. I think that's important. Both of them have closing experience. Like Montero filled in a lot for Ryan Press this year. I think he had 14 saves. And I know Suarez didn't have any saves really this season for the Padres, but he was getting saves over in was he in Korea, I think, before?
Suarez? Yeah, I think so.
I believe he was in Korea. And I like that both can miss bats, both can get ground balls, both Montero more so than Suarez, but they both check a lot of boxes that I like, that I'm looking for in like a late inning arm. And I think that they would both be really good fits. And actually they're about the same age. Suarez is 30.
Suarez was in Japan, by the way. Not
was in Japan. Okay.
Korea.
But he was a closer in Japan. So
his last 2 years there, he was a closer. This year, 47 innings, whip of 1.049, 61 Ks and 47 and 2/3 innings.
And I just think they both fit what the Red Sox they check a lot of boxes too, that I think the Red Sox look for in relief targets. And I think that you could get them at reasonable deals because, they're 31, 32 years old. 2 years, 8 million, 3 years, 8 million, around that. I think you could. And I think you have to spend at some point for, some stability back there. And I think that with no, I'm not really interested in Craig Kimbrell or Kenley Jansen, frankly. I'd rather go for the Montero type on a slightly longer deal, but a little cheaper, kind of like what the White Sox did last year with Kendall Graveman.
Yeah. The quote unquote closers who are out there, I don't want Kenley Jansen for more than 10 million, even on a 1-year deal. He's 35. Chad Green's interesting to me as a rehabbing Tommy John guy. If you could get him for Ben Clemens has him getting 2 at 7 million per. That's a bit steep, but the crowdsource had him at 1.5. Wouldn't hate it. Zach Eflin's interesting, I think, Ian, as the potential swingman guy. The crowdsource for Eflin is 3 years at 10 million per. That's a little steep.
It's gonna be interesting to see what he gets as a contract, because I don't know if he wants to start, because obviously Philadelphia used him as a reliever when he came back from his injury, but he's had a lot of knee issues the last couple of seasons, which I'm not sure how that would translate to having to get up, a couple times a week. So,
Clemens has him getting a 1-year deal at 9 million as kind of to show he can stay healthy. I'd be cool with that.
Yeah.
Eflin's an interesting fit for that swingman guy, actually, now that I think about it.
I'm not sure, though. I'm not sure you're going to want to pay 9 million for a swingman. That was the issue.
But it's not a swingman in the sense of he's not Matt Andriese.
No.
Right? I want a legit,
I just think that there will likely be a team that would offer him a full-time starting job at that salary.
You think?
Yeah.
I think it depends on the knee, though.
Yeah. So, I think that the thing that's hard about the pitching market is why I think they also could look to address this via trade. I think there are some intriguing guys on some of the lesser teams, like someone like Alexis Diaz and Cincinnati. They have actually a couple other guys that are interesting too. Even out in Colorado, maybe you try to make a play for old friend Daniel Bard. I think that's a market we could see addressed by trade also. Whereas as starting pitching, it's a weird, I don't know what they do with this, because as you kind of talked about, they need an ace, but there's only 3 of them available. And I don't think any of them fit really what the Red Sox would be looking for in a guy they're paying that much money to, especially given the uncertainty with Sale. The last thing I think you want to do when you have someone with Sale's injury track record is be shelling out 30 to 40 million for someone like Verlander, Rodon, or DeGrom, who all come with significant injury concerns or age concerns.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of puts them in a weird spot and I don't think they're going to want to give up the prospect capital to trade for a pitcher either. So,
right.
I almost wonder if, you hope to bring back Eovaldi and then you try to go get Tyon or someone and hope that Sale just is, back to at least being a solid number 2, and you run out a thing with a bunch of a rotation with a bunch of 2s and 3s and hope that can like kind of hide the fact that you don't have a true ace.
Yeah. I don't know that. The Astros had an ace. It's just that he was healthy at the end of the year, even though he wasn't for a lot of the season.
The Astros had like 3 aces. Like,
yeah.
Framber's insane, and Javier is absurd. Like Javier doing what he does with 1.5 pitches, it's just crazy. Like like 70% sliders. But yeah, like their rotation is just crazy. Like Garcia, like the fact that they had Javier and Garcia weren't guaranteed starters, just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that I don't see them going after those top guys. It's just the short of it right there. I think that like maybe they go for like Mike Clevenger on a prove it deal. Like guys like that, I think are more in the range that they'll be looking at.
Shall we talk about outfield?
I think we should talk about bats because I feel like outfield.
Just sign Aaron Judge.
Yeah. That would be so funny.
It would be fun.
It would be fun because Aaron Judge is incredible, incredibly talented. But B, like the discourse that would come out of New York would be just it'd be so funny. Like, and I think it seems like he's like San Francisco is very interested in him, which makes sense.
I think he's going to go to San Francisco.
I think so too, because he's from the Bay Area, I want to say, or California at least.
I don't know.
Let me look. But yeah, I don't. I think they'll call Judge. Like, he's from Sacramento.
Okay, so that's north.
So yeah, NorCal, but still. Or NorCal, sorry.
NorCal.
I don't want
NorCal.
I don't want our NorCal listeners to get mad at me.
Just don't call it Cali.
Yeah. But I don't think they'll go after Judge. And the problem for me is the outfield market is so bad. Like
he might get I saw like a legitimate, I think it might have been Tim Britton actually who made the argument. Like he legit might get 400 billion.
Yeah.
Like that's not out of the question.
No, I don't think he will, but I think he's gonna end up getting like 350 probably.
Yeah,
and I don't think he'll even get that.
Tim said 8 years at 320.
Yeah, I would say 300 because he's not. I forgot he's 31. It's not like he's like 27, 28.
Yeah,
like he's not going to get one of these 14 years. Yeah, because he was a college guy.
Yeah, and the Fangraphs crowdsource is 8 at 300. Ben Clemens said 9 at 315.
Yeah, so around 300 probably. But the thing, I think it sums up the outfield well that the second best outfielder is Brandon Nimmo, who.
Although Nimmo, man, don't sleep on him.
Oh no, he had
the last 2 seasons.
You know what? He had a great season last season, and his plate approach would be perfect fit for what the Red Sox are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
He also has over 600 plate appearances in a season once in his career.
Yeah,
like,
well, he's projected to get 5 at like 100 million total,
and he was worth 5 wins, 5.4 this year on Fangraphs WAR, 3.3 last year, 1.7 during the pandemic season, 1.4 the year before that, 4.8. Like he's been good for a while. It's just the way he gets there isn't flashy. You know, it's like a 430 slug, but it's a 370 to 400 OBP is how he gets there.
Over the last 2 years, he is one of the top 15 outfielders in baseball on Fangraphs WAR.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, but
like he's good.
I don't want him to be like the second best outfielder on the free agent market. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you look after him, the next outfielder on Fangraphs.
That's when it gets ugly.
Is Benintendi at 17. And are you giving Andrew Benintendi 4 years and 14 million? I'm not. Like,
dude, that's wild. That's the crowdsource for Benintendi.
And so it drops off so fast.
And here's the problem for the Red Sox is like, you kind of need a right fielder.
Yeah. And this is the other issue is like Nimmo is a center fielder. Benintendi's a left fielder.
Nimmo, I would play in right.
I don't think his arm is good. I'm going to look though.
Really? You could play him in right for, I guess, yeah.
Well, but the thing is, I mean, he would have to want to play right field too if he fancies himself a center fielder. You know, I don't know how much right field he played this year. I don't know if you have that up, but
I don't have it. I know he's played all 3 positions.
He played this season. He played only left field. Oh no, I lied. He did not play only left field. I'm looking at the wrong thing. This season he played center field. Yeah, he didn't play. He hasn't played right field since 2020.
Okay.
He played 33 innings in left field in 2021. This season, he only played center field. His arm strength is good. It's his jumps that are bad. Sorry, that's what it is. But he's a good defensive center fielder. So, he would probably translate to right field. But I'm just not sure I'd be comfortable giving him that much, especially because he's going to have the QO attached to him. And
that's after that,
it just gets ugly quick. It's Benintendi,
Benintendi,
Mitch Haniger, like.
Conforto, which who knows what the deal is with him.
I would take Conforto on a 1 year deal, like give him 1 year, 10 million, 12 million. And
if you're cool with his medical,
yeah, like I'd be fine with that. But
Brantley's not an outfielder anymore.
Brantley's like a DH now.
Brantley's a DH.
Profar, I don't think fits what they need.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Like Kevin Kiermaier is like a top 7 outfielder in the free agent rankings. That's not good. Like obviously Kiermaier's a great defensive center fielder, but you can't.
I'm curious what MLBTR had. So
it's a tough market, and this is why I think outfield is, if you're going to address it by trade, this is the position you do. I think that maybe you make a run at Brian Reynolds, maybe there's going to be teams like maybe you make a run at one of the Diamondbacks young guys because they have too many outfielders like Jake McCarthy, Alec Thomas, someone like that. In a weird trade that we didn't expect, like maybe Ceddanne Rafaela, just throwing this out there, like Ceddanne Rafaela for Jake McCarthy, or you probably have to add more, but like something like that, someone we haven't really predicted. But yeah, outfield is tough. And I think though that the target I would have for like that right field spot is like either a true outfielder, someone that you'd be comfortable like platooning a DH to. And maybe, it's a lefty that, you can platoon with, like Ref Snyder can play the outfield too. Like someone like Jock Peterson, like even I'd be comfortable with more.
Would you be cool with a Peterson, Ref Snyder?
I don't know if I want Peterson playing the outfield is the issue. I feel like I'd be more comfortable with him as my DH. And that's why like Hosmer's fit on this roster is so weird. If Casas is going to be the opening day first baseman, like Hosmer, frankly, to me is a better fit as a bench bat, but he's not really a fit there. So I wonder if he gets moved this offseason, frankly.
Well, I think the way you handle Hosmer is you start the year with him as the DH / plays first base a couple times a week, just to, you don't want him to just be an everyday DH. I think you're going to rotate guys through DH. So Hosmer is getting 4 or 5 starts a week. And after a while, because the thing with Hosmer now is he's got a no trade. So he has to buy into getting moved, and he's going to be able to dictate where he moves. And so I think you get till midway in the season, you say, look, Casas is our guy. He's your Casas insurance in case Casas isn't quite ready for prime time.
Yeah.
If Casas is cool, you're cool with, going with him the rest of the way. You just sit down and say, look, man, like we appreciate what you're doing with this team. Your playing time is about to get cut down to like twice a week or once a week. We would like to move you. We think it is better for all of us if we move you. Where do you want to go? Here are some options. Let's make this work. I think the time to move him is during the year. I don't think they can move him reasonably before the season starts. So I think that's the most likely situation with him. And that's why I think you've got to kind of pencil him in as the, quote unquote, starting DH to start the year. Cause I'm with you where he doesn't really fit on the bench either, especially like, I kind of like the idea of Bobby Dahlbeck on the bench, getting like spot at bats at first, at third. And, I'd hand him an outfield glove to give him maybe a start or 2 a month in the outfield. If he takes to it, I just, that's now 3, or 4 corner infielders on your roster, counting Devers. That's an awful lot, even with a 26-man roster. So, yeah, it's interesting. The outfield market is so bad. Like, I mean, looking at even MLB Trade Rumors has the everyday regulars in the corner outfield behind Judge as Benintendi, Brantley, Haniger, Trey Mancini, who I would prefer at first base, Andrew McCutchen, who's 36. And Jock Peterson. Like McCutchen maybe McCutchen wouldn't be a terrible platoon guy with Ref Snyder at the right money. Maybe you're on mute if you're talking about.
McCutchen wouldn't be terrible. It's just like, it's not exciting. Like,
no.
I feel like this team needs some energy and some youthfulness, or
Corey Dickerson, Adam Duvall, Joey Gallo.
The fact that we're talking about these guys shows how bad it gets quickly.
Robbie Grossman.
So yeah, I mean, that's why I just think David outfield is a position you potentially look for via trade. I think was my final takeaway. I
would love a Brian Reynolds, David Bednar trade. It just seems too good to be true, and you're giving up a lot for Reynolds and Bednar. You are giving up Miguel Blaze. Yes,
probably. I mean, I would love to get him without it, but I would
put it this way: if you were the Pirates,
yeah, I mean, I'm asking for him. I would call them and be like, I'll give you Rafael, York, and Mata, and pick, low level Wickelman or someone, like to pick your lower level, high upside flyer. They'd probably say no, but like, yeah, I would try to do everything in my power not to trade those three.
Would you move Blaze in a deal for both of them?
I don't think so. I don't think I can.
He's also your binky. And I don't say this in a like a negative way.
No, I just think that like the way baseball is going, the value of someone who has his upside is just like, it's not measurable. And you can't be the guy the team that trades that player. Like, imagine the Mariners traded Julio Rodriguez when he was in like A-ball, or like the Braves traded Ronald Acuna. Like, you can't be that team.
Dodgers traded Yordan Alvarez.
Well, exactly. Right? You can't be that. Like, Miguel
Josh
Blaze,
Fields.
Like, scouts mention names like the ones I just said with his upside.
Mm-hmm.
There's not been guys in the system that kind of names get mentioned with in some time. Like, he has the highest ceiling of any player in the system, and any player in the system probably since Devers that I can think of. And like, it's just like, if everything were, and obviously the reason it's even a question is because he's so far away. But if everything works out with him, he's like a person who can transform your franchise, kind of like the way Julio Rodriguez has. Like, obviously the Mariners had a lot of good building blocks, and like they were on the upward trajectory, but getting Julio Rodriguez up there is taking them to that next level. And Blaze has that potential. Like, he's someone, that down the road you could see as a gold, or, an above average defender,
true 5-tool,
above average defender who hits 30 home runs and steals 30 bases. Like, so yeah, I personally, I just don't think I can trade him. I don't think I can do it. But if they would take Rafaela, York, and a bunch of other stuff, sure, I'd do that in a heartbeat. But yeah, I think just to wrap up the offseason discussion, I think catcher is worth a mention, just because they keep saying, or the Red Sox front office, and they keep bringing up catcher. So even though I think McGuire, Wong, I'd be comfortable trying that out. But I also can see, like, if you can get a catcher who, like, and Contreras is the obvious one here, but if you can get someone like him who catches, 40 games a year, DHs in the other 120, 110, like, you can carry all three of them on the roster, and I don't hate it.
Yeah,
but
that's true. At that point, I think you've got to move Hosmer.
To me, I think it's another one of those, like, they're going to explore it, but unless there's the perfect fit, I feel like there are other priorities ahead of that, especially since you have some interesting in-house options there already.
Agreed. All right. We have totally blown up A, our time, and B, our itinerary, or whatever you want to call it here. So let's jump next, I guess, Ian, to where is my list of dates? Where did it go? Here we go. No, that's not it. Previewing no. All right. Here we go. Off-season dates. Thank you. Okay. Qualifying offer deadline we talked about. Free agency begins 10 November. I guess, okay, one other reason we need to talk about free agency beginning 10 November is that Emmanuel Valdez is among the players the Red Sox who are eligible for minor league free agency. That list includes a number of other guys who we could see them bringing back on minor league deals. But in order to keep Emmanuel Valdez, they need to add him to the 40-man before that date, not before the November 15th date, to protect guys from Rule 5. I think we both, for me, Ian, I think it's like 95% certain that they do that, because I just don't see the point of trading for a guy who is heading into minor league free agency, not intending to keep him. I guess there's a chance they could try and sign him to a minor league deal. I don't see why he would do that, because I think he would probably get a deal that adds him to the 40-man roster somewhere. So I think that's probably in your certainty. Do we agree on that? I think there's probably not a reason to get into it too far.
Yeah, I think Valdez gets protected. He's gonna be. I think he was gonna be protected, and you have to do it now, so you just do it.
Yep. Deadline add players to the 40-man for Rule 5 is next Tuesday. We're probably not going to be able to record again, or at least far enough ahead of that to preview Rule 5. So we've got to do it here. So I guess looking at the list.
Yeah.
Let's maybe start. the names I think we've talked about before, but here are where the names and where I'll say where I'm at. You can tell me if you agree or not. The only true 100%, he is definitely no question getting added to me is Cedar Rafaela, because he's no question getting picked. He's no question going to stick.
I mean, I slightly disagree. I think Walter's 100% getting protected also.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
But you agree that he's certain.
Rafaela is the clear number one guy who's getting protected. Yes. Yeah.
To me, Brandon Walter is the next guy on the list, as I'd probably put him at like 98, 99% certain to get protected.
Yeah, he's getting protected.
He's getting protected. Because I think if he gets picked, the only reason I think that there's a sliver of doubt in my mind is the injury, the neck injury that kept him out since June.
I mean, but he's saying he's going to be healthy and ready to go. So you can't risk that to me.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, he's not even going to get back on a mound until December, which is interesting. I mean, that's probably a normal offseason progression. But
I feel like
honestly,
guys
that's a normal offseason progression.
Yeah.
But the only reason I throw that sliver of doubt in there for me, which I get not having it, is the injury. Brandon Walter, as a left-hander, I think he could stick in a major league bullpen right now. Valdez, we mentioned, I think the likelihood is higher for him than it would otherwise be, because the fact that they traded for him indicates a willingness and interest in protecting him on the 40-man roster. After that, I think the next likeliest is Thaddeus Ward. And I say that because I don't think they would have sent him to the Arizona Fall League to potentially get scouted if that's not where they probably were. I know he needed innings as coming back from Tommy John surgery, and he actually missed 3 weeks with an oblique strain, I think it was. But he came back this past weekend. He threw 2 innings in relief. I don't think they would have sent him to the AFL if they weren't planning on protecting him. I would say it's like 85% likely, maybe, that Ward gets protected. I would be very, very surprised if they didn't protect him, because I think he gets picked if he's not protected. I don't know where you are.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the only thing that's giving me like a sliver of doubt is that his stuff was down in the AFL, but I feel like that was kind of like makes sense. You know, he's coming off of surgery. He barely pitched at the end of the season. He also did get hurt out there. So yeah, I think that he's going to get protected. But yeah, he's somewhat of an interesting case just because of, you know, we don't know what the metrics are showing, like how the stuff is looking now that, you know, the second time that he's back, like things like that. It's going to be what is the team viewing on his long-term projection too? Because I think he's to me, he's more of like a multi-inning reliever type. But yeah, I think he'll get protected.
Yeah. After that, after those 4, I think it gets very, very interesting. I think there is a group of 3 guys after that I could really see going either way. I'll start with Chris Murphy, who I think is the likeliest of the 3. I think it's more likely than not that Murphy gets protected, and here is why. He spent the year in AAA. He's close. I think if left unprotected,
no. He ended the year in AAA.
Did he start the year in AA?
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. Thank you.
He
end of the year in AAA.
He threw 76 innings in AA and 75 in AAA. And his 76 double innings were very good. His AAA innings were not.
Yeah, that's correct. True. Okay. I think he gets selected if left unprotected. I don't know how likely it is that he sticks.
I agree. I think a team will take a shot on him, especially since he's a lefty.
Bring him into camp.
The bar for a lefty is so low.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt to, you know, he obviously wouldn't be a starter. You bring him out, you know, he's a 1-inning reliever as a lefty, and I feel like a team can
maybe
hide
a bulk
him.
Guy. Not a bulk guy as in the guy who follows an opener, but a guy who can come out and give.
I'm just not sure with his command, if his command and control is not MLB ready. So I feel like you would want to limit his exposure, which is why I think a 1-inning rule would suit him best if he's forced up to the big leagues early because of the Rule 5 thing.
Yep.
But I think that another factor that and when we talked about this before, I actually didn't really think of is like they just don't have a lot of lefties in the system, and I think that they need to get some balance on the 40-man, and he's at a level where I think he's, you know, it's defendable to carry him on it. And I think that, yeah, like other than him and Walter would be the only guys, you know, they don't have a major league lefty reliever, depending on what happens with Josh Taylor and Darwinson, who I both think are candidates to be either DFA'd or non-tendered, depending on which one.
Yeah. Well,
But
Darwinson's not eligible. So
yeah, so he would be a DFA, and then
be a
Taylor
DFA,
would be
yeah.
a non-tender.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that's why I said both.
Okay.
But I just think that if he was a righty, I don't think I would be having him protected, frankly. But because he's a lefty, I think that we also wouldn't be as highly ranked if he was a righty. But I think that he gets protected in the end. Because I also think they have the room. Like they you know, we're going to spoiler alert, but I think we have 5 guys who we think are going to get protected. Like that's very doable.
No, no question. I mean, between 5 and 7, and they can easily do it.
Yeah. And like, I mean, look at I think Cleveland protected like 13 last year. Like,
yeah, they had such a weird situation. Yeah. I mean, the thing with Murphy to me is I think it's a situation that's not terribly dissimilar to that they had with Williams Harris a few years back, where it's different because Harris was already in the bullpen. But if Murphy pitches this year in AAA, like he did to close the year in AAA, right? Like if the numbers look close to the same, and I'm not saying it's because of the numbers, I'm saying the results are what they were. I think at that point, you put him in like the okay to DFA pile. Like it'd be okay he would probably clear or potentially clear. Maybe a team might like him as a starter. And so I don't think it's quite the same, but I just think he's so close that like you might as well protect him and keep him as depth and see where it goes and let it ride. And like, hey, if it doesn't work out, like I think if it doesn't work out, he's now expendable. Yeah. Maybe he's a throw in a deal. Maybe, you know what I mean? He's like
I mean, like they traded Gabe Spear for something. Like I'm sure there would be a team interested in him.
Right. The next guy, having just talked about it, in Manuel Valdez, is Wilyer Abreu, the other player they got from the Astros for Christian Vasquez. When the offseason started, I considered him maybe not near certain, but I had the same sort of like, why would they have traded for him? I have come off of that.
No,
I have come off of that, and in part because he was okay after they traded for him, and in the AFL he's been okay. Or no, in the AFL has been bad.
No, he's hitting like 170.
He's been awful. AFL. You're right. He doesn't look like he belongs.
He's not ready for the AFL, I don't think. Yeah. Like I talked to some scouts who've seen him out there, and like his BP is good, but it doesn't translate on field at all.
Yeah. And so I think they might risk him getting picked, honestly.
I don't think he would. I mean, we don't know, but I think it's unlikely that he would get selected and stick.
I mean, I think there are teams that like him because if you remember when the Red Sox made that trade, Keith Law,
he said he was the better prospect in the trade. I mean, I also don't think Valdez, like I saw something that like Valdez was like the second baseman of the future for the Red Sox. And it's just not for me.
No, I mean, look at it this way. I would not have Valdez nearly as high if it weren't for the fact that he is a pending minor league free agent. If he had another year of team control
on the 40-man list, you mean?
For this, I think I would have Valdez as. I still think he would probably get protected, but I would have it as less likely than I do.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
right. Because it's like if you're risking him getting picked in Rule 5, that's very different than like he will become a free agent if you do not protect him. So Abreu, I'm kind of meh on, and the other name that I think
I will say on Abreu though, the one thing is like he does have the profile of guys like you can kind of hide because he can play defense, he can throw. So like you could maybe see a team trying to be like, oh, we'll use him as like a 4th or 5th outfielder and hide him for season. But I just don't think the long term upside is there to justify that. Like,
well, the long term upside, and then there's also the like, is it worth? There's like the risk reward of using the 40-man spot on him.
Well, I also frankly think that if a team really wanted him that badly, I bet they could acquire him from the Red Sox for, a minimal, like a flyer prospector. You know what I mean? Like they could just trade for him and not have to put him on the 40-man after the Red Sox don't protect him.
Or you could do what, like, trade for him to put him on the 40-man without having to pick him in Rule 5 and keep him on your 26-man.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Kind of like what who was it? Yohan Ibar, the Yohan Ibar Christian Cost trade. Like,
yep.
Except I guess Ibar was on the 40-man at the
time. Ibar was on the 40, but it's the same idea.
But it's the same idea. I actually think he's a pretty good candidate for that potential. Now that you've mentioned it.
Yeah, he could. We'll see.
And I think, frankly, Murphy would be in the same boat too if the Red Sox are like unsure if they want to protect him. I feel like you could get something for him.
Yeah, I just think Murphy has. I don't know. Murphy's. I think of Murphy a little bit more than I think of that type of player. The last name I want to mention, and I am warming more and more to the potential of protecting Wickelman Gonzalez. The thing with Wickelman Gonzalez is that if he hadn't cleaned up his mechanics so much later in the year and performed so well in Greenville and looked so good in Greenville, like when you saw him, Let me put it this way. The player I saw in Salem to start the year, I would not protect. The player you saw in Greenville to end the year, I think is a very real candidate to get protected. And I don't know where you are on it. I think he's trending up towards that 50%, that 50-50 ball type protection. I just think the thing is that he's still far away. He doesn't have like a Luis Perales type upside.
No, there's a good chance he's a reliever.
There's a good chance he's a reliever. It's just a question of how good of a reliever do you think he is. But I could also see a team that caught him late in the year in Greenville being very interested in using a Rule 5 pick on him.
Well, I think the thing is that he fits the type of profile of player that teams have targeted when it comes to pitchers. Like Jason Garcia with the Red Sox is a great example of this. He was someone who had never pitched above low A, and the Orioles took him to the Rule 5 draft because they saw him throwing 100 in instructs. Or like Elvis Luciano got selected, I think, by the Blue Jays out of like high A or low A. Like that type of player has been selected, and there are enough teams that are not going to be competitive that they could try to hide him just to get someone of his caliber. Because I mean, if you look like his end of the season numbers, as you mentioned, and I caught him during this stretch with Greenville, like he was very good.
He was our pitcher of the month for August
with Greenville. 17 innings, 23 strikeouts, 6 walks. This is what MILB says, but I feel like he threw more. I couldn't get BREF wasn't working, so
it was a whole month. There's no way that's
because he only threw 4 innings when I saw him. I feel like he had a couple of 4
innings. If he had interesting. I think he finished strong in Salem.
I think it was a Salem into Greenville thing.
Yeah, that's what it was. But his last few starts,
I think it was after. I think I'm almost
coming out of the All-Star break.
The All-Star break, yeah.
He was bad going into the All-Star break.
I have
fixed something during the break because he had like a 10 to 15 day break.
It 100% was. It was right after he had a 13-day break.
Yeah, that's
from 7-13 to 7-26, and after that he was 37 innings, 23 hits, 13 walks, 46 strikeouts.
Yeah, that's
2.43 ERA, 176 batting average, 278 OBP, 214 slugging. Swing strike rate was only 11%, which is pretty low, but 60%, 61% strike rate, like that's better. And then when he got up to Greenville, which is he threw 4 innings 3 times and 5 innings once. It was, as I said, 23 strikeouts in 17 innings, 6 walks, 13 hits.
Right.
And I obviously saw them. The stuff it wasn't as good as I expected it to be in the context of like when he was coming up. Like his velocity was still like a little, but it was still like it was much better than when I saw him in instructs, for example, or like when you saw him.
Yep.
And I just think that he's the type of player you're trying to add to your system, and you already have him. And I wouldn't risk losing him. I just don't think it's worth it. Like, I think you can hide one guy on the 40-man. They did it with Jay Groom for several years. Like, you can take a spot and hide a guy who's not major league ready. And to me, he's the perfect candidate for that, because I think it's more like it's easier with a pitcher, because I just think position players, it's a lot harder to get them to stick. And we'll mention another one in a second who like is a candidate, but I don't think he's going to stick. So I just think that you're going to have to like, I think a team, there's a decent chance a team takes a shot. And for that reason, I protect him. But this is where, the scouting is important, is like, if you're confident that you don't think a team will take him, then I would risk it. But that's the hard part, is figuring that out.
I mean, and the thing is, if you look at the guys that they left unprotected last year, that I think they would have lost a couple of guys, honestly, if there was a Rule 5 draft last year.
No,
and
I know for a fact they would have lost at least one. So
and it's I know who you're thinking of. And it's like, losing a guy in Rule 5 is not the end of the world. If anything, it's actually the sign of a strong farm system to some degree. But I mean, if you can avoid losing a Wickelman type, because the thing is, in the era of a 8-man bullpen, you can stash Wickelman Gonzalez for a year, I think. It's just the question is any hit to his development worth stashing him in the bullpen for a year? It might be, especially if you think he's a future reliever and you're not too worried about him getting innings that would allow him to start. I could see a team going for it. The name that you were thinking of is Edinson Paulino.
Yeah.
I'm with you in that I don't think they will protect him.
I don't think so either, because I just think it's tough for him to jump from low A to the majors. I just don't think a team could. And I don't think a team would do that. I think like we've
I could see a
seen it
team
before.
picking him and bringing him into camp and then sending him back.
We've seen
But
it
I don't even
before,
think
but it's
that'll
usually
happen.
with catchers. Like Luis Torrens is who comes to mind,
Mhm.
who was selected out of A-ball from the Yankees.
Yep.
And obviously he stuck around initially, and I think he did actually make the whole season. But I just think I wouldn't burn a 40-man spot on him for this long.
Yeah, having seen him a couple times this year, I really liked him. He does not strike me as the type of guy that gets popped in Rule 5.
No.
The
And I
other
think-
name, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think there's, and I know who you're going to mention. I actually have a couple guys.
Yeah, I've got
like,
two.
Yeah. So do you want to mention?
Yeah,
The next one is relievers.
The two relievers are AJ Politi and
I think
Ryan
it's three
Fernandez.
for the record.
Oh, okay. Who's the third one that you would mention?
Wallace.
Oh, Jacob Wallace. I guess. I mean,
You have to throw him on there because if there's a team that is like a TrackMan team and they look at his metrics, they're just going to be like, okay, we'll take a shot and see if we can clean it up.
and I mean, to me, Jacob Wallace is a candidate to get popped and sent back in spring training.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, but I think he's someone who is worth mentioning because I think there's a decent chance he could get picked.
Yeah, Politi, I could see getting picked by a team that wants to get a look at it. I mean, look, if Justin Haley got picked in Rule 5 once, I could see AJ Politi getting picked.
Yeah.
I just think if you're the Red Sox, it's not worth using the 40-man roster spot to protect a guy who's probably at best a major league middle reliever.
I agree. And that's why I don't think that the other guy is Ryan Fernandez. I think he's in the same boat, especially. And if he had ended the season healthy, I think we're having a different discussion.
Yep.
But since he ended the season injured, not exactly sure what
that
it
worries
is.
Teams.
Yeah, the unknown there. Like that's what hurt Pizzardo last year was teams didn't know about his injury status and why the Red Sox were able to pass him through waivers during spring training. So yeah, I think that's gonna kind of save them from having to protect him. But I mean, I feel like it's gonna be interesting. And once we know what their decisions are, I think we can have a kind of a more nuanced discussion about who we think is likely to be picked, and that'll allow me to do some digging and see what teams are thinking about the Red Sox group. But I think that for me, I just to wrap up the discussion, I think that 5 to 6 is the sweet spot of the number of guys
5 to
they're going
7.
to protect.
I could see 7.
I don't think it'll get to 7, but yeah,
I don't think it will. But I think those are the error bars for me is 5 to 7.
Yeah, because I think if
more,
it's
5 to 6 more likely.
Rafaela, Walter, Valdez,
Ward,
probably
Murphy,
and Murphy is 6, and then the 7th one would be Abreu / Paulinho, someone like that. But I think 6 is the number.
I think Abreu is a lot more likely than Paulinho. But
I mean,
it's semantics at that point.
Yeah.
Other names just worth mentioning. We're not going to discuss them, but guys who are eligible: Ryan Fitzgerald, Chase Shugart, Briner Bonesi, Gilberto Jimenez, Victor Santos. I don't think any of those have any chance of getting protected. All right, so that's Rule 5. What else do we have, Ian, on our? I mean, non-tender deadline. The Red Sox are guys who could get DFA'd or non-tendered. The non-tender deadline is November the 18th, I think. 18th. Ryan Brazier, Franchi Cordero, Josh Taylor, Yu Chang. I don't think Taylor would, but I think those are the kind of guys you're looking at.
Oh, I don't. I think there's a chance Taylor could be non-tendered.
Yeah, and I think there are other guys on the 40 who could get DFA'd. It's just
the
thing is
they're going to have to, if they're going to add 5 or 6 guys, they have to get rid of. They're going to have to make at least 3 to 4 moves, and that doesn't include anyone they signed prior to.
Yeah. So right now, the 40-man roster is at 37.
Yeah.
That includes guys like Easton McGee, Caleb Hamilton, and Jake Reed, who are all claimed on waivers during the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
So you're forgiven, or I guess in Easton McGee's case, I guess it was the last week of the season. You're forgiven if you don't remember any of those happening. Yeah. But it would not surprise me if at this time next week, none of them are on the 40-man.
Yeah.
So those guys,
and
Chang,
even like Yu Chang could be DFA'd.
I could see that. I could see Franchi Cordero getting DFA'd.
Yep. Caleb Ort, I wouldn't rule
Caleb
out.
Ort,
I don't think so, but I wouldn't rule it out.
I mean, Paxton might be off of, depending on what Paxton does, he might be a free agent.
Yeah. And even someone like Connor Siebold, I don't think it would surprise me, but I feel like he's a candidate.
Would be rough timing. He got married this weekend. So.
Well, I just think that if they're going to be doing 4 to 5 offseason additions plus 4 to 5, plus they're adding 5 to 6 guys to 40, that's 10 spots they're going to need. So
Yeah, but a Seabold could be a throw in a trade.
Right. No, that's what I mean. I just wouldn't like it's he's in my bottom like 5 to 10 of secure players on the 40-man frame.
Yeah. I mean, like
right
put
now.
it this way. I could not see Caleb Ort as a throw in a trade. I could see Connor Seabold as a throw in a trade.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, so we'll see how that turns out. Other dates, I think that's all the dates. Rule 5 draft is December 7th.
We'll talk about I feel like the
we'll talk about that as it gets closer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably all of that stuff that we need to talk about. We talked about what the team's going to do. So I guess that leaves two things. One, a quick update on the fall and winter leagues, and then your emails. Fall and winter leagues. We're not going to get fully in. The Arizona Fall League is already almost over, which it always feels crazy.
Well, I think it finishes next week, right?
It finishes this week. It's done. Like the playoffs end November 12th, like on Saturday. The news from the Arizona Fall League first was that Nick York missed 4 games with left wrist soreness. It was actually over the course of 6 days. So he basically missed a week of games, but he came back. He's hitting very well, 950 OPS. Has tweaked his stance. Actually, is something we should mention, Ian. He is hitting with the bat kind of, how would you describe it? It's not like Julio Franco where it's pointing at the pitcher, but it's more above his head.
It's more vertical.
Well, it's horizontal, but it's over his head.
No,
it was vertical.
No, it's still reasonably vertical, but it's just his hands are a lot higher.
And now I need to look at it again because I would call
his bat is not like back horizontal. Like that's like, it's not like Kevin Youkilis who like had it like.
This is definitely horizontal.
No.
Look at this. What do you call this? I'm showing you this. That's horizontal.
No, but yeah, that's a still shot. It's not like that.
That's what I'm saying. He's holding it horizontal, and then when he loads, I'm saying the bat.
Talking about
the bat is horizontal.
I'm talking about his hands are more vertical. That's what I said. His hands are more vertical.
Hands are higher.
Yeah, like more vertical. They're higher up.
Okay. Well, vertical. I think of the line of the bat. The line of the bat is horizontal. His hands are above his head. Put it that way. Fair enough. But whereas before he had them at kind of the shoulder, but he is coming to the same load, so it's just a position of his hands before he starts his load thing, which was interesting to me to see after the struggles he had this season. I almost wonder if it's a wrist thing. Now that I think about it, probably not. Right?
Be more comfortable, yeah.
Could be more comfortable for his wrist. That's interesting.
I sent the video to some people and they said it was mostly a cosmetic change because he ends up in it's like the same swing afterwards.
He ends up in the same load and it's the same from there. Steven Scott and York were the 2 players the Red Sox had in the AFL Fall Stars game. Scott has 5 home runs. I actually ran this down, Ian. He joins a group of 4 guys, at least during as far back as I could get stats. Going back to, I think 2003 or 2, 4 Red Sox have had at least 4 home runs in the Arizona Fall League. Did you see that? Did you see the list when I tweeted it? Okay. 1 was Jeter Downs last year. Do you want to guess at either of the other 2? Both played in the majors for a while.
Going back to what year?
02 or 03. But you don't need to go back that far.
Both played in the majors.
Both had fairly
Josh Reddick.
Correct. Well done.
I mean, Josh Reddick is like my default answer to any Red Sox related question about a guy who played in the majors.
True. More recent. Had a second stint with the Red Sox. Did not go well.
Travis Shaw.
Correct.
Yeah.
Travis Shaw. So, I mean, that's pretty good company to be in. But the point that I made is that being in the AFL is kind of self-selecting as it being a good prospect. So
I just realized we should have mentioned Steven Scott with the 40-man or the Rule 5 discussion.
You think?
Yeah. I don't think he gets protected, but
you think he'll get picked by a team that wants to keep 3 catchers, I guess?
He's a catcher. Like the bar for catcher is so low that if you buy into, and there are some good advanced metrics with him, like, like
at the plate, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if you buy the bat, and you have a scout, like let's say you saw him at the AFL and your scouts were impressed with the bat. And this is something I'm going to dig into more this week, because I've heard from some scouts, but Interested to see kind of what the vibe is on Scott,
Yep.
especially because I think he was in the Fall Stars game, he was in the home
He
run
was.
derby, things like
He was in
that.
the home run derby. He was like second to last in the home run derby. But I
Yeah,
mean,
it
who
didn't go
cares?
well, but like he doesn't chase. He, he can hit breaking balls. Like he's got pretty good exit velo numbers. Like
Yeah.
he can hit lefties. Like I wouldn't rule it out. That's all I'm going to say.
The only reason that I'm skeptical is the defense because this is his first
the defense
season
is not
playing
good.
catcher.
I saw him play catcher. It's not great. But the other, this is what's tough is like, I'm not sure I wouldn't rather have him than Ronaldo Hernandez on my 40 man taking up that catcher spot.
Interesting.
And like, if you're telling me you have to pick one of them for that spot, I not like, especially given you would be resetting your options basically, because I think Hernandez is one more option.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like it was I feel like it was worth mentioning. I don't think it's likely, but
yeah. Let me throw this out there. Steven Scott as a potential Steven Vogt.
Right, exactly. That's the you play catcher, first base, left
and
field.
left.
Like, yeah,
because he can do that.
Yeah, like
that's interesting.
I think he's worth monitoring. Was basically like what and it's the other thing too, and it's worth mentioning. Like he got up to AA, and like the chase numbers improved or stayed the same basically. Like his hitting versus velocity was the same. Like he was a little tougher against spin, which makes sense. Obviously, the better breaking balls there, but like he still hit lefties well. His exit velo numbers were still solid. Like I wouldn't rule it out, frankly. I think that, and that's why he's someone I haven't really been talking with scouts about him. I've been more asking about like Abreu, York, those guys in the AFL. So I'm gonna have to do some more research on that. But he's someone I just as the outside candidate to add, protect. We should mention him. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, fair. We'll do a full recap on the Arizona Fall League on the next episode because we're running way long right now. But the other thing that I wanted to mention was Thaddeus Ward, who we already talked about. And we'll do the full recap on that later. We'll do a full recap on Winter Leagues next episode as well. The one thing I did want to mention is Tristan Casas, who played 3 games, hurt his knee, done for the winter.
They were glorious games. He had some good swings in there, though.
I mean, he had 222.
No, I'm serious. Like he had a couple of really nice swings.
Yeah,
but yeah,
222 average with a 467 on base in 9 at bats over 3 games.
Yeah, unfortunate injury. But.
Yeah. The problem is he really needed the at bats after missing so much time this year with his ankle injury. But in the Dominican, you've got Emmanuel Valdez is down there in like a part-time role for Este. Victor Santos and Franklin Herman are pitching down there as well. Chase Shugart was down there playing for Las Estrellas, but he actually got released. So his winter's done. In Venezuela, it's Pedro Castellanos and Darwinzon Hernandez, as well as minor league free agent Odair Mosqueda. And then the Puerto Rican Winter League just started last week. Matthew Lugo and Christian Koss are playing for Caguas right now. They're going to be joined on Wednesday of this week, the 9th, by Cedon Rafaela, who has been working out with Team Netherlands for their Kingdom Series, which I guess is basically just their camp, kind of to begin prep and picking their team for the World Baseball Classic. Also down there are Jeter Downs is going to be playing with Mayaguez. He hasn't yet. Juan Montero is playing for Ponce. And then on the pitching side, Nate Tellier and Henry Nunez are with Ponce. And Elmer Rodriguez Cruz is going to be playing with Carolina, I believe. Or Carolina. It might be Carolina. Otherwise, not too much else going on in the Winter Leagues. Like I said, we'll do more of a recap later. Let's get to your emails. As always, if you want to send us an email, send it to podcast@soxprospects.com because we want to talk about what you want to hear about. There are a bunch of these. Let's do them quick. I think we already hit on some of these, Ian. Our friend Travis emailed us with a question of, do you think the Red Sox decision makers are approaching their Xander plan as a 3-year deal as a shortstop and 2 more years deal as a DH or positional timeshare with Meyer on the horizon? Better yet, should they, in your opinions? And I'm going to skip the rest of this. But I think we kind of touched on that, is that you sign the guy and what happens down the road happens down the road. That's certainly a possibility of him moving when Meyer comes up. Right. And then he also says with the context he mentions, he says by 26 or 27 and approaching another free agency, wouldn't it behoove Bogarts to move positions to enhance his profile by showing his flexibility and ability to produce into his late 30s? By then, no one will be pursuing him as a shortstop or easing any potential hard feelings. I think if he's getting paid, it makes him easier to move him. I think that's fair. Any other thoughts on Xander, Ian? I think that kind of touches on it. Our next email is from Jake, who says, "Hey guys, I agree with what you said on the last pod regarding trading for an outfielder versus trading for pitching. Bloom and Cora have both said they want more power and athleticism in the lineup going forward. With that in mind, what do you think about going after Tyler O'Neill? He had to down 2022 because of injuries, but if he's healthy, he definitely checks the power speed combo box with good outfield defense. In smaller samples, his K and walk rates also improved a bit in 2022. The Cardinals already have a ton of outfielders, and Jordan Walker coming soon. And O'Neill is 2 years from free agency. What do you think, Ian? What are your thoughts on Tyler O'Neill as a potential trade target?
I would definitely be very interested in him. The Cardinals do have to trade an outfielder probably at some point. But I feel like they might have already addressed that with Harrison Bader is the thing.
Yeah, trading Bader to the Yankees.
So I'm not sure that O'Neill would be available.
Yeah.
But he definitely would be interesting. I guess the only thing that would slightly concern me with him is just how much his swing and miss is not something I really think they need. I think he's like a 30+% K rate guy.
Yeah.
And I think if I was like with what I would be looking for the team is I would be looking for, or I guess not last year. He was 27% last year. The year before he was 32%. I'm trying to look for more like, contact oriented OBP guys who also have some pop, but O'Neill, if he was available, would definitely be someone of interest.
Yeah. I mean, the Cardinals in the outfield have Lars Nootbaar.
He's like more of a platoon bat.
Yeah. Tyler O'Neill, Dylan Carlson, obviously in center. Ben DeLuzio on the bench, and then in the minors.
Well, they also played like Edman and Brendan Donovan in the outfield this year too.
They just added Moises Gomez to their roster. They've got
they have Walker's the big one. They're gonna have to make room for him at some point because he's playing third base right now, but he's gonna end up at outfield because obviously they have Arenado.
Right.
He's already playing outfield actually, but it's not the worst idea. I'm just not sure he's someone that they would be that interested in trading or motivated to trade.
Our next email is from SG, who says, I do agree there are some guys to trade for, like Brian Reynolds. Guys like this would be ideal, but secondarily, or last resort, one, are there high-level prospects that are absolutely major league ready in which you guys would realistically trade for? Trading for other teams' prospects.
Well, so the one I mentioned was I think Arizona has to move an outfielder. Like they have Corbin Carroll, who's obviously like going to be probably a stud. They have Jake McCarthy, who was very good last year. They have Alex Thomas, was a highly regarded
top prospect as well.
They have Kettle Marte, who also has played the outfield.
Well, he's gonna just be.
But he'll be.
He played only second base this past year. Actually,
Dalton Varsho, who's like a Gold Glove center fielder. He also catches, but he's like an elite center fielder and a really good hitter. Like, and they have Stone Garrett, who they got as I think off waivers or as a free agent, who's a solid platoon bat. Like they have too many outfielders. If you look at their roster research projections for next year, their starting outfield is Varsho, Jake McCarthy, and Corbin Carroll, and that doesn't. So Alec Thomas isn't even there. So I do wonder if he's someone that I don't know if there's a fit with the Red Sox given what they need, but maybe there's he's someone to go after. That was the only one that came to mind initially, and when I mentioned it earlier, I haven't really it's tough to know because I feel like those trades are the hardest to predict because they kind of just come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He's not a prospect, but like maybe the Red Sox go after Sean Murphy again. Like, wouldn't be surprised about that if they wanted a catching type.
Yeah, but he's going to cost so much. Like we've talked about.
But but like that's just like
Well, that's why. And his second part of his question is: does anyone jump off the charts as both can't miss and realistically attainable? And it's like
it's so hard to say with those, because I feel like, and not to go back to the Diamondbacks, but like when they traded Jazz Chisholm for Zach Allen, that was something no one talked about. You know what I mean? And then it just happened. Like, or
no one had Jazz Chisholm as available.
Right. Or another one was like the Cardinals. They traded and the Rays. They traded like Liberatore for Randy Arozarena. Like there was other parts involved. Like those trades, I feel like are the ones that come out of nowhere because it's just like, hey, we like this guy, you like this guy, surplus. Like it's hard to say. With the Red Sox, though, I do think that they do have some positional surpluses that I would deal from. Like they have too many middle infielders, especially in like the mid to high minors. Guys like someone like a Matthew Lugo. He's not a middle infielder now, but Like I wouldn't be surprised if someone like him potentially got shopped.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what are you going to get for someone like that? That's the hard part.
Yeah. Our next email is from John, who basically, after Casas getting hurt, asks, you guys didn't seem worried in January when Casas boasted about weighing 265 pounds, but is it time to revisit the weight question for Casas? Maybe even ask if his long-term future is more at DH than at first. Even if it's all muscle, there just isn't a great history of everyday players playing at 265 and avoiding leg, ankle, and foot injuries. Look at Giancarlo Stanton, for example. Same height, weighs 20 pounds less, is known as a workout warrior, and still has missed a ton of time with foot, calf, knee, quad, hamstring, and Achilles injuries. I mean, he's just big. I mean, there's plenty of big players who didn't get, I mean, like, did Richie Sexton get hurt a lot? Like, I think it's a small sample size of guys. I don't know that I'm too worried about a track record of guys who are that big getting hurt. I think he just had a bad year injury wise.
Yeah.
It hasn't been a thing before. Like he's gotten through other seasons fine without injury. So
yeah,
I'm not
worried yet. I mean, it's obviously disappointing that he keeps.
This is two injuries. Like it's not like it's
right. That's what I was about to say. Because if you remember last year, it was also like weirdness of like going to the Olympics and things.
Yeah,
like
last
that,
year he wasn't hurt.
Time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Let's skip this one. We'll do that one on a future episode. Here's a question. This email's from Harrison Fisher. He says, the numbers say that Ender Solera had a lousy 2022, only 62 at bats and a batting average of 129 in the Florida Complex League. Your website projects him as a bench catcher repeating in Florida in 2023. He was spoken of in glowing terms throughout 2021, and now it seems like he may have been injured this year, which tanked his performance, but I don't really know what happened. Is he viewed differently now by the team, by the industry, or Sox prospects? Thank you. First of all, let me just mention the at-bats thing.
In the catchers.
In the FCL, well, it's not that they had too many. In the FCL, you don't really have a catcher who plays like 4 days a week.
Yeah,
you only play. I think they only play 5 games a week to start.
That's correct.
So you're starting with only playing 5 games a week. That's during the middle of the day in Florida. Like the catchers who start don't even always play the whole game. Like they switch catchers mid-game very often. So the number of at-bats is not a thing. Like don't read into that.
Yeah.
As far as the projections, again, like there's not really a starting catcher. Like I think we probably got Brooks Brannon, although Brannon we might have projected at.
I would say Brandon's going to go to Green.
Brandon's probably going to go to Salem. So I think we have. Oh, you know who we have as the starting catcher is Johan Fran Garcia. I bet coming up from the DSL would be my guess. Yeah,
I mean, we
have Brandon, but I could see like basically Lira is going to get time there. It
was an aggressive appointment in the first place. Like. And I think we talked about
this. It's not aggressive. I just think
in the sense of he just developmentally is not ready. Like he's physically not at the level he needs to be to compete. I think at that level, like he's still growing. Like he got bigger, he got taller. He's still growing into his body, and like his skill set is one that is still like he has some good traits, but it's traits that don't necessarily carry over to the box score. Like
sure.
So I think that it's like. He obviously his stock is down a little bit. We've obviously moved him down the rankings
or off the rankings, but yeah,
or whatever. But like he's still a follow. He's still on that list of guys we're interested in. It's just he's so far away. There's no point in like
he's going to be 19 all of next season. And the thing that you have to remember now is that like repeating the complex league is not a huge problem now because if Lowell were still a level, he would be going to Lowell next year probably. So, repeating the complex league is not a problem for a guy coming up from the DSL at this point. Honestly, like repeating the DSL isn't a problem anymore. When that used to be like, holy crap, you repeated the DSL, like you are a non-prospect. So I'm not worried about him yet. I mean, he is what he is. But thank you for the question about a lower level guy. I do love getting those. Our next email is from Jonathan, who says, just want thoughts on this trade. Who will you guys add, or do you think the trade makes sense? So here's his proposed trade, Ian. Okay. The Red Sox get Corbin Burns and Christian Yelich. The Brewers get Jarren Duran, Durbin Feldman, and Nick York. That's not going to happen.
The Brewers would laugh at you.
And I mean, even on like
I'm guessing that he's saying because Yelich is such a negative contract.
Well, and he used MLB baseballtradevalues.com, but even on that, like it's a net total value. Oh, yeah. Okay. So Yelich is seen as a negative 126 value.
Right.
So this is like,
guessing, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at this is what he got on MLB trade values. I don't see them moving Burns. I don't know if you're the one who's mentioned, but Brandon Woodruff's interesting.
Yeah.
But even still, like, I just don't see, I don't think you're definitely not getting him for the Duran, Feltman, York poo-poo platter.
No.
If
you're not gonna like if you're trying to get Burns, you're gonna be having to give up some of your top guys, even if you're taking on Yelich.
Yes, no question.
And I don't see why would Milwaukee want to do that. Like they're trying to compete. They were very close to making the playoffs this year. Like,
people think that they're going to move either Woodruff or Burns.
Maybe. I mean, well, I don't know what their contract statuses are. That might be some reason.
I think Woodruff might have 1 year left.
Yeah.
But might have to. Our next question is from Hugh, and he says, is it true that if a team stays above the luxury tax line for 3 consecutive seasons, they lose out on revenue sharing? I believe that's true. He says, I've scoured the internet and the CBA agreement for this information. While I've seen others talk about this, I can't seem to actually find any information confirming that this is true. Can we confirm? And if so, is it part of the CBA or is it part of something else? It would have been part of the CBA. I'm going to leave this in the queue because I want to research it actually. Okay, so we'll go back to that. Our next email is from David B, our Patreon supporter. He says, I was reading through a chat about the offseason and the question about Whitlock and how it came up regarding their value as starters versus relievers. In general, I fully understand that getting 150 innings out of a pitcher is worth more than 50 innings. But what I've started to think about more is the impact of a pitcher on your chances to win a game versus lose a game. It feels to me like starters are working to provide you the chance to win, but relievers are more there to keep you from losing. Hence, I wonder if it's fair to directly compare their value head-to-head on an innings and ERA basis. I don't think this is as much of a question around whether you would want player A who is a starter or B who is a reliever. It's more about pitchers like Whitlock who seem to have the skills to succeed in either role, deciding how he provides more value to the team. Of course, inherent to this topic is not just is impact on the team and not just the pure value of a player in the abstract. If you already have 6 average or better starters and a very shaky bullpen, putting him in the pen seems more valuable. Whereas being in the rotation is likely better if there are more question marks there, since bullpen help could be easier to find. We've talked about this in the past, Ian, so I don't think we need to spend too much time on it, but I think it's if the player it depends on what type of starter and what type of reliever is really what it comes down to. And the threshold, if you're going to be a true major league starter, like no question, even say like a Nick Pivetta type, that is more valuable than I think pretty much anything but a lockdown Edwin Diaz type reliever.
But yeah, just because I mean, innings are just so important. Like the ability to work deep into games, and if Pivetta is someone who can give you 180 to 200 innings a year, that's a big deal. So, yeah.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Just actually something interesting that Alex Spear just put up, talking about that. It was I think it was Chaim Bloom. But it was basically saying that the Sox are looking to upgrade their bullpen significantly with a preference for stable bullpen roles that includes the closer, which makes me think more that like the guys or a similar type of players to who we mentioned earlier will be targeted, because I think they want that stability back rather than kind of the mishmash they had this year.
Okay, interesting.
I just thought that was interesting. It's in his latest article that just went up, which also frankly mentions that brings up Sean Murphy again, but yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Mike Greenwell was elected to the Lee County Commission. So there you go. So the Commissioner's Cup is now in part being played for Mike Greenwell. All right. Change labels. Here you go. Okay. Next question is, I won't spend too much time on it, but the question was from Mike, and he says, what would it realistically take to trade for Shohei Ohtani? Ohtani is not being traded per the Angels front office. He goes, would a package of Meyer, Blaze, and Bayo be enough? Too much, laughably low. I think that's where you're starting. I don't know what you think it would take, Ian. This is why they're not trading him.
Yeah,
it's why they're not trading him. Next question is from Aton, and he says, I hate the idea of trading Marcelo Meyer, but if the Red Sox are planning to sign Xander and extend Devers, then I think there's really no room for Meyer. I don't want to see Devers at first or DH or Xander in left field, so I just don't see where Meyer could play. Just stopping there real quick. Again, we're talking like 3 years down the line, so who knows if you would still feel that way. Anyway, he says, what do you think the Red Sox could get for Meyer? You've mentioned Sean Murphy, and that sounds good. Meyer is a top 10 prospect, and he's coming off a great season. I'd hate to see him traded, but it feels like you could net the Sox a high-end starter, maybe an outfielder, maybe a catcher. What do you think they could get? But yeah, I mean, yeah, a top guy. I mean, he's a top 10 prospect.
Right. I just think it's something you don't, those guys very rarely get traded.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason. I mean, like Noelvi Marte was top 20, top 30 prospect.
Top 30, yeah.
Top 30. And he was included in a package that netted Seattle, Luis Castillo. So
Eugenio Suarez.
And Eugenio Suarez. So, extrapolate from there. And I think that is,
but that's
that's the last email.
You wouldn't trade, like, with the way the Red Sox are trying to construct their team and what Chaim Bloom has been preaching about, like, the prospect depth and everything. It doesn't make sense to trade Meyer. Like, he's the type of player you're trying to build around in the future, and who, if you have a player like him, it allows you to spend significant money elsewhere because you're getting such surplus value from him. So that's why you don't trade guys like him.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, thank you all again for the emails. Again, podcast@soxprospects.com. And with that, we are going to wrap up. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for supporting. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow the site's accounts on Twitter and Instagram at Sox Prospects. And if Twitter doesn't implode, you can follow Ian at Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. You can follow me at SP Chris Hatfield. You can support us on patreon.com/Sox Prospects. And we want to shout out our $5 level Patreon supporters. That would be Deb Kendall, Andrew Wallen, Lendl Martin, Ernest Shermer, Kyle C., Tyler Woodrow, Pat, and New Hampshire, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Bill Stanton, Evan Kirkwood, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kenyon, Ben NRI, David B., Ben Burnett, Al Mendel, Kevin Katrides, Steve Gregory, James Bailey, Andreas Goldstrand, Corey Perrick, Forrest Perkins, Mark Herman, Brian Cowan, Andrew K., Jeff Harwood, Dusty G., Michael Murphy, Bob Introne, Pavel, Jordan Shabbat, Jeffrey Scruggs, Nicholas Staropoli, Mike Carano, Chris Bollier, Curtis Waltman, Michael Stewart, Caleb Farron, John Kane, Jason Stoneburner, Jason Parker, Mike Granger, Mike Mignosa, Jeff Richardson, Michael Curran, John McGee, Nicholas Lenson, Paul Manish, James P. McMahon, Jim Tuttle, Adam Gregory, Brian Rose, Jake O'Donnell, John Mulqueen, and our two newest $5 level supporters, Gerardo Ian Tosca, who I think was a longtime supporter who fell off and came back. Welcome back, Gerardo. And Sean, I think it's Guinan. Please email me and correct me. I'm pretty sure I got that wrong. But Sean, thank you. But thank you all for your support. For Ian, I'm Chris. We'll be back next week with Rule 5 stuff and more off-season stuff. Enjoy the off-season. The hot stove is lit. Let's go.